This is Contemporary Chinese Revised Edition, Volume 2, Lesson 7, Words and Expressions, Part 2. So we're starting off with a word for food, another word for food, and it is 食品. 食品. So in this word here, two characters, 食 is the word for, actually word for food. 品 is a word for product. So here when they're talking about food, it's in the broader sense of food as a product. 食品. So if we were to talk about to eat food, we wouldn't necessarily say 吃食品. We might say 吃菜, for example, or 吃饭. 吃菜. Or we might say, 吃饭. If we want to just talk about eating food in a physical sense of actually eating something. But yeah, 食品 is more in the sense of talking about a food product. Moving on to our next one, we have a sentence. 句子. 句子. So like shipping, this is a noun. But in both cases, you need a measure word if you're talking about quantity of some sort. So, 一个句子, 两个句子. And you just, for shipping, you'd either use 个, 就是一个食品. Although more often than not, they're probably likely to use this one, which we haven't learned before. But 种, which means type of. So they would say 一种食品. Anyhow, going back to 句子, so I think that's fairly straightforward how that's used. Just 一个句子, 两个句子. Moving on to our next word here, we've got dictate or dictation. So it's either a verb or a noun, depending on how you use it. And that is 听写, which I really love because if you think about it, it says exactly what it is. You listen and you write. Whereas dictation, that's a little bit of a longer jump from the word to the concept. So, you can, for example, if you want to use it as a noun, you might say something like 中文听写. And so if we're going to use that as a noun, we might say, 做中文听写. But you could also equally turn it around and say, 听写中文. So in the second example here, that's used as a verb. 听写中文 in the first one. 做 is the verb, and then 听写 is a noun. 做中文听写. And I think in a dialogue they use it as a noun, if I'm not wrong. And also, again, this is an example of a two-character verb where both characters are verbs, so we would not split those, normally speaking. Okay, here we go. Here's the word for test. Test or exam. So it's also the word for exam. And it's pronounced 考试. 考试. And in this case, it's two characters, but the true verb is 考. And 试 is like, when we talk about, a Chinese test. So there a test is a noun. So here the 试 is a noun. 考试. So there are times when we would either need to, repeat the verb part, 考. 考试考得很好. Might just pop that in there. So we'd say, 你考得怎么样? 我考试考得很好. 考试考得很好. So because it's a verb noun combination in this expression for test or to examine, therefore we have to repeat the 考, and in other cases we'll have to split the two and put something in the middle. Or you can say, for example, to take part in a test. I think we've learned this word before, and that is 参加考试. I might just put the pinyin for the 参加, 参加, can't recall if we've learned that before. But yeah, to take part in a test, to do a test is 参加考试. So 参加中文考试, to do a Chinese test or an exam. How do you know whether it's, because in English, test and exam, excuse me, sorry, are sometimes used differently, whereas maybe, at least in my perception, test is something which is smaller and exam which is something larger. So we talk about an end of semester exam. Generally, they tend to be worth more than during semester tests. But in Chinese, it's the same word. They would just add end of semester or mid semester, for example, before the word 考试. Okay, moving along, we're now coming to to begin or to start. And that is 开始, 开始. So I think in our dialogue they talk about, 开始考试. And for example, we could, when we're doing our classes normally, and say we've had a break, and we 休息5分钟, then when I'm ready to get started again, I could say 我们开始上课，好不好？好，我们开始上课好不好？ So 开始上课 to start, to begin, 上课 to do class, to attend class. 我们开始上课. So 开始 is a verb, and yeah, often used before other verbs to express the idea of starting that action. On the other side of that coin, we have to finish, and that in Chinese is 结束. 结束. Just looking at it here, the interesting thing about the characters for 结束 is that 结 is also the word for a knot, as in, when you tie something, a string up in a knot. And 束 means to tie something together. So there's an expression in Chinese, 束手无策, where my hands are tied. I can't do anything. So in the Chinese concept of things, to finish something is sort of like tying off the knot. Don't know if that makes sense to you or not. Also, just back in the expression for to begin, I mean, 开 we've now seen in a number of different contexts, meaning different things. We've seen it to mean, 开车, as in to drive a vehicle. I think in the last video for the vocab for the lesson 6, I mentioned that 开 is also used for when you're talking about a doctor writing out a prescription. So 开处方. We've also got the classic example of, 开门, to open a door. So 开in that sense, yeah, to begin. And 始 is the beginning of something. 始, that second character, that also means the beginning of something, or to begin something. Okay, moving along. We now have to forget, which is something that I do more and more often these days. 忘. So if we want to say, I've forgotten something, generally they'll say, Chinese native speakers will say 我忘了. 我忘了. And they'll put the le on there because forgetting, I guess, in a sense, inherently means that you've gone from a state of knowing to, or remembering, and to a new state of forgetting. So 我忘了. And then, you can add other things after that. I forgot to buy the Chinese textbook. Why you would say that, I don't know. But you can say, 我忘了买中文课本. Not sure if have we done textbook? 课本. Okay, which kind of makes sense. 课, 上课, to go to class. 本, 一本书. 一本书. So an 一本书, it's a measure word, but here 课本 means a textbook. All right, moving along. This is something that I do too much for these videos, I think. 慢. 慢, slow. 慢. It could actually be a very handy word for you, both in the study context and also in real life. For example, when you're doing the oral test at the end of a semester, And if you feel that the teacher is talking too fast, you might say something like 请您说慢一点，请你说慢一点。Okay, so could you please speak a little bit slower? And 请您, sorry. And then, when you're in a scenario where you're talking to somebody in real life, outside the university, it may be that this would come in handy too. So that's man, it's an adjective. This is a word that we actually talked about, I think, in class last week or the week before. Diligent, 努力. So you could say, for example, 他学习很努力. So he or she studies very diligently. 努力. Moving along, we've got a very handy word, two handy words actually. First one, 难, meaning difficult. Okay, not to be confused with the word for male. Same sound, different character, of course. And you could say something like, 学习中文很难. And then the opposite of that is 容易, easy. Okay, 学习中文很容易. This is a very interesting expression. This is one that gets applied to me sometimes at home when I 忘了 something, and the expression is 糊里糊涂, meaning muddle-headed, confused, and that's an expression that in China they use a lot if somebody seems, a bit confused or out of touch. 糊里糊涂. Moving along, we have the expression final, or it's an adjective, so you can add it to other nouns, for example. So let's just look at the pronunciation first. 最后. We know that 最 can be put before a whole range of different nouns and adjectives. So if I say, 最好, meaning the best, we can put before verbs to say, for example, 我最喜欢, my favorite, I like the most, 我最喜欢. So 最后 literally means, the absolute last. But it can be used to mean final or finally. So you might be talking about a series of things that you did, and then you might say, and then finally I did blah blah blah. 我最后回家了. So finally, after all these other things I've talked about, I went home. But you can also say, you can use it a different way, and you can say, for example, 最后一个考试. So the last test or exam, 最后一个考试. So that's a very handy word to know. We then have this one here, 分钟, meaning minute. So, again, this, when we're talking about duration of time, how long something goes for, we could say, it goes for 10 minutes. So you might say 10分钟. So I don't know, you might say, 我们学习汉语学10分钟，好不好? So we'll study Chinese for, or谈话, for example, to speak Chinese, or 说中文, 我们说中文说10分钟，好不好? It can, so it says it's a measure word there. Yes, it is, I guess. Yeah, when you look at it, 10 is our quantity, and then 分钟 is our measure word there. So in the actual lesson, in the grammar section, we'll look at the use of 分钟more closely. So we'll get into more detail in that then. Another word that we're going to learn in relation to time and particularly duration is 刻钟. 刻钟的意思是15分钟。刻钟的意思是15分钟。Okay. So yeah, and if we wanted to use it as a noun, we could say, 一刻钟, 一刻钟, so meaning 15 minutes. So 他什么时候回来? When is he coming back? 过一刻钟, after 过一刻钟, 15 minutes. Okay, here is another word which we actually saw a longer version of just before, 句. So just a bit earlier on we saw 句子, meaning a sentence, okay, and this is a measure word for sentences. So 两句句子. To be honest, you don't often hear Chinese people say that, 两句句子. They would say 两个句子. But if you change the word 句子 for something like, say the word, Chinese, so we could say, 你说两句中文, 两句中文. So to say 2 sentences of Chinese, for example, 两句中文. Oh, that's nearly gone off the screen. Sorry about that, guys. I need to keep an eye on that. 两句中文. So it's used in that sense as a measure word. Here we go. Here is the word I told you just before. Sort or kind. That was 食品. I said here with 食品 that as a measure word, rather than saying 两个食品, which you could, it's more likely for people to say 两种食品. So here is the word 种, meaning sort or kind or type. This last one, 变. Now you guys may or may not remember, again in the Chinese island lessons, when you have said something to one of the virtual characters and they haven't understand, they will say to you, 对不起,我没听懂. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. 请你再说一遍. So they're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, 我没听懂. 请你再说一遍. Could you please say it one more time? So as you can see, it's a measure word for the repetition of something, and particularly in relation to reading, speaking, or writing. So in this case, 再说一遍 is speaking, yeah? And so I think this is a really handy word for you guys for the oral exam. If the teacher asks you a question and you didn't get it, you can, in addition to saying 请您说慢一点, you can also say 请您, so I would change the 你 to a 您, 请您再说一遍. Could you please say it one more time? Literally from beginning to end. That's the difference. So we've learned another word which was 次, which means time. So 一次, 两次, 三次, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. But the word 变, it emphasizes from beginning to end, which is why it's so relevant to reading, speaking, or writing. So just to finish off, we could say something like, 这本书我看过2遍. So literally, this book I have read twice. And if you think about reading a book, when you're talking about how many times you've read a book, you literally mean from the beginning to the end. So that's the difference between 变 and 次, which doesn't emphasize that process.